See, maybe I can. Here, let me do this. There we go. I can see.
Hi.
And just so everyone knows too, if you hit your spacebar and move your cursor, you can look around while you're sitting up, down, and side to side. And just hit the spacebar again to lock your view.
You instead of mine. I see the back of my head right now.
The wave emote is a shortcut with the F1 key. Is anyone on a Mac?
No.
Yes, I'm on a Mac.
Okay. If you're on a Mac, you might have to hit your FN key, hold your FN key while using F1, depending on how you have it set up, or you can use the emote panel on the right. There you go, you got it. So let's see. I'm out of my body right now, so I'm a camera person that you can't see.
Oh.
And
Body.
on the count of three, how about give it a wave? 1, 2, 3. All right, we'll try that again. David and Trisha, are you feeling good about your wave? You want to practice?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. What was I supposed to do to wave?
Yeah, I'm on the count of 3. Sorry about that. I'm taking your picture.
So,
hold on a second.
Function F1 is wave.
Yeah.
What's the key for waving?
F1 is the hot key.
Function. Didn't work out. Oh wait.
You can also just click the clapping hands in the blue circle on the right of your screen.
Oh, I got it. I got it.
Okay. Whatever that is worked. All right. All right, beautiful avatars. Here we go. On the count of 3, we'll wave. 1, 2, 3. Wave. Oh, that was great. Awesome. Yeah, got some photos for you.
Welcome. Did somebody just join us?
Yeah, I think Namchan has been trying to join us all day, so that's great. Not all day. Give my hyperbole. Yes. Glad you're here. I'm from Columbus.
Columbus, where? I'm in Columbus, Ohio right now.
I love how photography is just like in person in the metaverse sometimes, because somebody blinked, but I got one that.
Was I the one that blinked? I bet.
No.
Because that happens in real life all the time.
It happens to all of it. So.
That's so funny.
All right, I'm going to share in the chat the photo. In the lower left, it should pop up as a link in a second, and then you can click on that and download it if you want.
Cool. And I can post about this. Oh.
Love it.
Wow, we look great. Look at us.
Hello to those on live stream. My friend just pinged me. She joined.
Nice.
Oh, I love this photo. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My fits kind of fly as well. Hey. I'm always looking at the back of my head.
See? Well.
Do you know if those on live stream, they're not supposed to see anything yet, are they? I don't know what that experience is like.
No, they're not seeing anything yet. No, it's just the title slide or it's the slide behind you, Trisha, is all that they're gonna see right now.
Okay, I'll just let them know. I got people online.
Nice.
Hello. Big loud microphone makes everybody's jump. Okay, so hello in the physical space. Hello in Verbella. Verbella, I'm going to make you guys live in the room right now. Welcome, everybody. I should probably get my script up. That's always helpful. If I can find it. There we go. So I have to do some refreshing of screens, I just realized. Tom warned me about that, and I haven't done it yet. Give me a few seconds here. Hit refresh right there. And to hit refresh right here. And hopefully it actually refreshes. There we go. So hopefully right now you guys are able to see some stuff on screens. There we go. There we go. All right. Welcome. So Verbella, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Wanted to make sure we could hear you as well. So welcome. This is the next evolution. Tonight we're going to be speaking about immersive technology and artificial intelligence. One of the things I always do this, and I'm going to ask the folks in Verbella to do this as well, but show of hands, who has been to one of these before? All right. There's a raise hand button in Verbella. Show of hands, who has never been to one of these before? All right, excellent, thank you. Again, I partially do that so that the folks in Verbella get used to the raise hand function because we'll be using that for the Q&A. And also, I will apologize in advance if I end up coughing a lot tonight. Getting over a cold from 3 weeks ago, but it's still apparently in my lungs and just annoying. That said, thanks all for being here. Thanks for, okay? Oh, Verbella is the virtual platform right there. So you can see it on the screens, and that's we host this event, and we'll talk about this in actually just a second. But we host this event in 3 spaces simultaneously. So it is live here in 1871, it is in the virtual space in Verbella, and we live stream it to awe.live, or actually Augmented World Expo, but now they're actually going to YouTube. But with that, let me get started. So tonight's topic is artificial intelligence, and we have put together an expert panel for you to discuss artificial intelligence. Each panelist will present on their background and then have a one-on-one with one of our hosts before we move into a panel conversation, fielding questions from either the physical space, Verbella, the virtual space, or the live stream. My name is Matt Wren, and I'm the founder of VRAR Chicago and The Next Evolution, which we started back in 2017. I will say my passions and expertise cross a whole lot of emerging technologies, and that is all I'm going to say about that. I'm happy to talk more about it after the stage presentation, talk to you all one-on-one. But that said, The Next Evolution is also AWE Nite Chicago, Augmented World Expo. Please check out awexr.com or awe.live for anything and more information about Augmented World Expo. It's a great organization. I encourage you to check it out. The Next Evolution, this event that takes place monthly, is free and has always been free and will always be 100% free to attend. As such, we are completely supported by donations. Here's a QR code. We would love it if you guys would make a donation. I'll flash this up again towards the end of the event, but we would like to keep this event free going forward. This is the only way that we get to do it. And we also get to do it thanks to the generous support of our sponsors who give us space, such as 1871, which is where we're all sitting, and to introduce 1871.
Hello. Some of you I've seen before. Welcome back. For those of you that I saw with your hands up who have not been to 1871, we love to just give a little explanation of who we are. So we are a nonprofit incubator and innovation hub. We're unique because we support businesses literally from idea all the way up to corporate level businesses. So we support the full maturity curve, we like to say. We're really excited to have you in this space. We host a lot of events throughout the year to support our members. They're open to the public. So check us out, 1871.com, if you want to get involved. Thank you.
And thank you. Now, with that said, as I mentioned, we are in multiple spaces at the same time, which means we also have multiple hosts. So I would like to introduce our virtual host for the evening. That is Trisha Blake. Trisha Blake is a dynamic change maker, a joy seeker, and Afrofuturist who brings her passion for technology, innovation, and empowerment to the forefront of her work. As a change practitioner at the City of Toronto and the founder and CEO of My Third Bloom, she advocates for accessible technology to empower underrepresented communities in the areas of women's wellness and education.
Hi, everyone. Great day. Trisha here. Multi-hyphenated. I think we forgot one. I didn't put it in my bio, but I also call myself the rich auntie in the metaverse. Our virtual panelists and myself are in an environment, as we just said, Verbella Open Campus, and are excited to be here for this conversation. And I will now introduce Sarah to share some words.
Hi, everyone. I am Sarah Segrist. I'm the VIP of community here in Open Campus. Open Campus is a free and open to the public virtual world built with the Verbella platform. And we're unique because we've done all the virtual urban planning of this kind of growing city here and have a lot of different residents and neighbors, as we call them, meeting up and are so pleased to be part of this kind of reaching across the different layers of connection with 1871 and all mentioned here. So thank you very much, and please come visit us anytime.
Thank you, Sarah. I also want to give a special shout out to XR Women. XR Women is a collaborative professional community of over 700 women and allies from over 60 countries. Hold on. Actually, it's 61 countries as of today. We are passionate about being industry leaders of accessibility and inclusivity and empowering more women to take their place in XR. Every Wednesday, we host a program featuring women speakers and panelists, engaging workshops and discussions, and more. In just 3 years, over 155 women have taken the stage, sharing their insights, expertise, and passion for immersive technology. XR Women is more than just a community. We are a movement. We are a force for change, shaping the future of immersive technology.
Thank you, Tricia. We'll get back to you again in just a moment. We do also have a lot of great community partners that support the event, namely Venity, 2 Degrees, Independent Gaming Developers Association of Chicago, 2112 Chicago, and Envision. And with that said, we also want to point out that we have an NFT tied to this event. For those of you who have never been here before, there's a QR code up on the screen right now. You can scan the QR code. It will take you to an application that allows you to download an NFT. In December, we are giving away a VR headset. I can confirm that at this point. It's going to be a VR headset. And the only way to actually be entered to win that is to have one of these NFTs. These NFTs are only available to collect if you are live in the audience. So basically, by the time the recording of this event goes to the live streams, the NFT is turned off and you can't collect it anymore. So I'll leave this up here for a few more minutes while I introduce the topic of artificial intelligence and immersive technology, and it'll be up, it should be on the back wall in the virtual space in Verbella. For those of you watching on the live stream, you can also collect it just by pointing your camera at the screen, and I'll put it up in the space here at the end of the event. Excuse me. Okay, so what we're talking about tonight is artificial intelligence and how it crosses paths with immersive technology, namely virtual reality and augmented reality. And so artificial intelligence has been, I will say, essential to the development of immersive technologies from the start. There's a pretty well-known artificial intelligence technology called OpenCV, which is Open Computer Vision, which is basically the base of almost all augmented reality that you see in devices today. If you dig down enough into the libraries of augmented reality, you will find OpenCV is actually what's driving a lot of the image recognition that's going on. It's also behind some of the algorithms that are being used for what's called SLAM, simultaneous localization and mapping, effectively a camera recognizing its location. So on top of that, artificial intelligence, essentially the technology of artificial intelligence is at the base of a lot of the developments of immersive technologies, virtual reality, augmented reality. Coming full circle, you are now starting to see a lot of artificial intelligence being implemented within virtual reality. So for example, if you go into a VR space and you're dealing with an AI-enabled non-player character or potentially an AI-enabled chatbot, you're starting to see AI become the content that you actually interact with in the virtual space. And we're also seeing a lot of, there's been a huge push lately towards generative AI, and you're starting to see generative AI building images, building text, and in some cases actually being able to produce 3D models and the environments that are being used for immersive spaces. So there's a whole lot of crossover between AI and virtual reality, augmented reality, immersive technology. We wanted to explore some of that today. I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit more later about a technology called NERF. Show of hands who knows what I'm talking about. Neural radiance fields. I know I see a few of them. Basically, this is the ability for you to take a picture of a physical space, run it through an AI algorithm, and have it automatically generated into a virtual environment or a 3D model. This is technology that is existing today. It's currently being developed, and I know we have one of the experts who's going to be here to talk about it. So these technologies, again, they've been ingrained for several years. They've been well implemented. This is the first time we're actually going to approach it as a topic and talk about what that means. And frankly, we are here to answer your questions. So that's what we want to do. With that said, I am now going to hand it over to Tricia, who is going to introduce our first speaker, Ivo Heining.
Ivo has made and consulted for XR releases, has written and made works in cinema, web TV, and film, has worked in radio on the air, and designed games and challenges for people around the world to participate in large-scale social campaigns together, raising millions and building awareness for key causes. She is currently vice president of the board at xrguild.org and leads metatraversal portal crawls and related public work on emerging XR design for creators using a mix of traditional and new media methods. Welcome, Ivo.
Thank you so much. Let's get that video going here. Okay, let's see if that's working for you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ivo Heining. I have been creating worlds for the last 20 years. It's nice to see you. Can you see my video? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. So I jumped into what is now VR, AR, XR back before any of those devices existed in the early stage virtual worlds era. And today I create a wide variety of virtual worlds, but I also use a number of generative media tools. So we're going to talk today about how generative media fits together with this broader space. And I'm hoping that, yeah, you are seeing my slides. So I'm going to have you go ahead and go to the next slide. And I will do my best to try and keep track on those slides. So I wrote a book earlier this year called Prompt Craft. And Prompt Craft is specifically how to use the language of prompting into any type of media. That includes things like large language models like ChatGPT from OpenAI or Claude from Anthropic. That also includes image generators, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Dolly, for example, video generators, and as Tom alluded to, also world building tools, things that can make a skybox or a 3D asset. I use all of these tools in my media production work, and in the book, which I'm currently working on a second version of, a second edition, you can explore a little bit of what those parameters and the language changes are so that you can be more effective in your own prompt craft. Next slide, please. So I jumped into this space a very long time ago, but I wanted to give you a very quick definition of what is a prompt craft, what is prompting in general. So when you are prompting, you are sending text, but it could also be images or emoji or other characters into the tool. The tool, a transformer, is then going to find a new way to express that information. It is going to take noise and create an image or a video or some other type of media asset. So when you're thinking about your creation of worlds, we are also engaging in a process of reality craft and thinking about broadly, not just how to use a prompt or a single word, but thinking broadly about all of the different inspirations we have in our artistry, right? All of the things we do throughout the day-to-day. So when I want you to think about reality craft, that is every detail of an AR or a VR experience. I'm working on a new book right now specifically on reality craft and how we go through these decision-making processes. Next one, please. So I jumped into virtual worlds almost 20 years ago. And next slide, I'm so sorry, next slide. I jumped into virtual worlds almost 20 years ago. And at the time, it looked a little bit like what we're doing here in Verbella. We had all of these 3D assets that we had to create. We would bring in media and we would have these social experiences together. And so I started to build a toolkit of open source tools and creative tools using things like Adobe Creative Suite. I wrote a series in 2005 about what it would be like once we had all of these generative media tools at our disposal. And now we're starting to see there's over 2,000 generative media tools. If you go to a place called futuretools.io today, you're going to be able to search for thousands of potential generative tools to put in your own producer's toolkit. So I want you thinking broadly about how these tools fit into the sorts of things that you're already creating. Next slide, please. There's a couple of different categories those tools come into. And we talked a little bit about world building, language models, and how to use those. Video tools are really common in my work. So I have a band called Oracles, and I'll give you the URL for that as well. But in our band, we use these tools to make music videos, for example. And when we are making media for a pretty wide variety of things, we may end up mixing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different generative media tools in order to create one final product. And all of these tools are becoming what we call multimodal. Not every tool is becoming multimodal, but many of the generative media tools out there, such as ChatGPT-4, can work across different types of media and can help you discern, for example, how to take a piece of media and make it available in a new way. So when we're talking about existing tools, right now, many of them are discrete, but are becoming less discrete day by day. They are becoming more multimodal and more integrated into these toolkits, some of which are free, some of which you pay for. Next slide, please. And so now, when we're going into this process of generative media creation, and I'll have you just skip right ahead to the next slide and go pretty fast through the next 10 slides. We're going to be thinking broadly about how to use those transformer tools, and the transformer tools vary wildly, but how to use those transformer tools to create anything. And that can be a portrait. That could be, next slide, please. It could be an object. That could be a skybox for a world. And so when we're going through something like image generation, for example, these were posters for a public service campaign, I'm thinking about how to mix not just an art style or a palette or a point of view, but also sometimes putting multiple things in juxtaposition to create an image that hadn't existed before. Next slide, please. And often when I'm going through this process, I'm creating entire collection. So I can see those of you in the room there may not have a sense of what a big collection might look like. But when we're doing that in a virtual space, it might mean creating 2,000 images, or it might mean creating 200 images, and then building what we call a training set based on that information in order to build a new avatar or a 3D object, a character, or a world. And I'll walk you through a little bit of that. Next slide, please. So XR Guild is one of the tools that I've been, one of the communities that I've been building a world for using this method, but it often starts with a process of reflection and inquiry, not just to the purpose of the build, but also to what is the emotional impact I want someone to have when they walk into a space. Is it a sense of calm and chill? Is it effective work? Each space has its own vibe. Next slide, and go ahead and flip through those slides pretty fast now. So when I'm creating new worlds, and sometimes I want them to look like vast new worlds, I start with an illustration like what you see here, the Lotus Temple. And the Lotus Temple is becoming what we will call the XR Guild building. If you go to the next slide, you're going to see the mock-up of what will be XR Guild's Guild Library and Hall. We are building this right now in multiple XR spaces in order to connect the public commons of immersive leadership and connect people to the research that has happened for the last 20 years. So I'm on the board of XR Guild. XR Guild works specifically with industry leaders to think about mentorship, but also ethics, research. Where do we need to be making sure that we are creating safety layers, for example, with our communities? And also, how do we support each other as professionals, much as we're doing here tonight? So the XR Guild building will eventually be a place where you can go and find that research or meet with your colleagues, have a private or a public meeting. And this will also be connected to new public spaces that are growing, such as the Virtual Worlds Museum, that is also using generative tools to design what will become a immersive WebXR space. So often we use generative tools in the first stage of an iterative process, but it's not where we end up. What we use for ideation. And if you go to the next slide, you're going to kind of get an idea of what this is like.
Hey, Eva.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I know we're running up on time right now anyway, but I also, Tom was only able to convert so many of your slides given the time framing, so that's what we got.
Totally fine. I think we're great. So I think we're going to do a couple of questions, and I'm happy to talk more about how all of these public spaces are connected together. But we talked earlier about XR Women, and Julie Smithson and some of the others leaders here. We've been all working on a project called Meta Traversal. And that also uses these generative tools, but specifically to imagine how we can all connect together and connect all of our worlds together. So that's what's coming up. And if you're interested in any of these ideas, the new book Reality Craft is going to be coming next year. I'm looking forward to interviewing some of you for that book as well. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Evo. That was awesome. I love the Lotus Hall. Only because the logo for my third bloom is a lotus. But one of the questions that I want to ask you is, you talked about the portraits, the objects, and the skyboxes. How do you see the synergy between AI and XR pushing the boundaries of creativity, especially in fields like film, cinema, and immersive design?
Right. Well, for example, in film, we've been using these, what are now generative tools. We were using previously other forms of algorithmic tools and AI in CG for the better part of 2 decades. So when you think about world creation, we basically went from procedural world creation, which is a different form of AI, to generative world creation. And generative world creation is a little bit more explicit. You can modify things, and it's a little bit more iterative. So it evolves differently with the human input than something that is purely procedural. Like in most games, you would have a procedural background. A generative background, you could alter and change and have it evolve differently just by speaking or giving it new information.
Thank you. Another quick question. As an award-winning producer and strategic consultant, you've worked on large-scale social campaigns. Could you describe how AI-driven immersive technologies are being harnessed to raise awareness and support critical causes?
Sure. So again, this is a place in which AI has been used for over a decade, for example, in social media and in healthcare, being able to get information to people at the right time for the right need. But now when you're thinking about generative media, it's also creating sometimes a layer of protection. And this is what I teach with nonprofits, is that sometimes you want a generative tool to create a layer of anonymity. And sometimes you want it to create a layer of personalization. And both of those can exist in tandem, so you can protect the individual while still giving the community a sense of connectedness and a sense of connectedness to the information, right, to the details of it. And this is where things like NERFs come in. Someone mentioned NERFs at the beginning, but with NERFs, you can, for example, get 3D objects to look far more realistic, for example, antiques and glass and crystal and unusual objects. And it gives us a sense of connection to the world that isn't necessarily easy to achieve elsewhere.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. I think maybe one more question before I hand it off. This is a good segue. What do you foresee as the biggest challenges and ethical considerations when integrating AI into immersive technologies? And how can creators address these issues responsibly?
With all of our work, whether that's at XR Guild or anywhere when we're talking about ethics and the rights of the individual, I often encourage people to start with a consent-based approach. And so in prompt craft, that means I don't use people's names or their IP unless they asked me to. I don't prompt other people's names in my work because I don't want to step on their creative toes. That's a personal choice I make. I also wouldn't put other people's personal information inside of any generative tool because I don't have their consent to do that, right? So we often think about consent as being something big, but it's often this light conversation that needs to happen in order for everyone to feel safe before they engage in collaboration together, no matter what the tool is. But if you start with a consent-based approach, and then you think also about the consent of the end user, if you're creating something, you want to make sure that that is communicated throughout. Now, that doesn't mean that every generative tool is ethically sourced or created. Many of them are not. And so I would encourage you to do your own homework before diving deep into a specific tool to make sure that it meets your needs, whether that's for your company or for your individual creative.
Thank you. I hope that everyone got some great takeaways there.
Great to meet you all.
Thank you, Evo. Over to you, Matt.
Yep, and we'll have Q&A for you. The audience Q&A will take place as soon as we get done through all the presenters. So everyone will be able to ask questions. But with that said, our next presenter who's live here in person is Xiaoshen Chang. He's going to come to the stage right now. I'm actually going to hand you this microphone and then I'm going to step off the stage for a moment. So Xiaoshen Chang is the CEO of FinTech for Good and the co-chair of AI 2030. He's on a mission to build and scale responsible innovation for a better world.
Thank you for the invitation. And do I sit or stand or do? Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you. So just last week, I was here to host the Chicago AI conference, and it was a great experience. And 1870 is great, and also the community is great. But this event is a totally new experience where that's, this immersive, where that's we exist in multiverse, and where that's, here and the Rebella and all that. This is the really a sign that we are moving from a traditional world that we live in the physical world into currently that we have some experience, but in the future that immersive just becoming the reality, and we will not, the idea to differentiate those different world may not exist, meaning that, our next generation may not even just think, why do you even care? And to point out that you exist in multiple verse or multiple, and that is just a reality. And just quickly, about myself and also what I do. And Just a few months ago, I left AWS as the global head of innovation and back to the company I built as FinTech for Good, and started the initiative called AI 2030. And the reason why I started that is because we have seen after the OpenAI launched, and then generative AI becoming a trend, and then everyone jump into that. And if you just go to the futuretools.ai.io, as the speaker mentioned, that within a very short period of time, and you can see how many tools out there. And many organizations, no matter small and big, and they are in a racing to just introducing AI tools. And earlier I heard conversation, people ask each other, did you use ChatGPT? Have you used the ChatGPT yet? And all that. So it's very clear that, when you just working on other emerging technology, you probably are less concerned. For example, and for FinTech for Good, I worked several years on blockchain, and where that's, when people, for blockchain or digital asset, this is proactive, meaning that you as a potential investor, you are a potential trader, or you are an owner of asset, you will go for it. And others will not push for it because you have to make that choice. And so that's why the technology builders will impact you in a limited way. If you don't make that choice, they may not be able to just impact your life. But the AI is very different. Like it or not, if you are a borrower, you want a mortgage to just apply for your mortgage to buy a new house. And on the other side, it could be an AI who just make that decision, and because of your race, or because your gender, or because of something, where that's you are declined of the loan and you don't know about it, and even regulators cannot protect you because there is currently still some gap there. Similar thing to, just now you can see creative industry. And, many of the, book authors, before that, you publish book and then you'll be paid with royalty, right? And now that's, when you just look at OpenAPI and many other, large language models are trained with book authors, with pictures generated by creators, with probably something you said in the past, and then all that just are being used to train AI models. And then now those technology company who are just leveraging that large language model to just introduce new products, new services, and also financially benefit from that. And you as the creator may even not know that your books contribute to something which others leverage, and you are not compensated. And another example is that if you are, for example, driving a vehicle, and that vehicle, there's nothing wrong about your driving, but another driverless vehicle, and which are programmed in the way they already made a decision. When there is a situation on the road, and then this car will make that choice. That choice, it may just impact your life. But again, you are not part of the solution. You are not part of even the conversation. So those kind of AI related application or innovation has a significant impact to everyone's life, you like it or not. And AI has started to impact your life in a fundamental way. So that's the reason why I started AI 2030 is that we cannot leave AI only in the hand to the technology company. And how can we just make sure that AI is being deployed and even researched in the responsible way? Are there fundamental questions that need to be answered, being fully discussed, and the people who should be at the table have their voice heard. And those principles which are guiding the companies to build and have those principles be fully agreed upon by those who may be impacted by it. So all those basically, we are looking at a new moment where this current rule or laws are insufficient to protect us. And the current principles which are guiding the software building may not be sufficient. Give you another data point where that's currently for any, again, this is just from consulting companies' data, and I'm referencing. And so within one AI product, and you have, 30 or over 30 engineers, and you have only one person and who have background or have expertise on ethics. And think about that product, which engineers or data scientists who don't have really ethics or other responsibility related training, and enter into this product. And how can those ethical principles be applied for the product? And another data point is that we're currently that although all AIs should be developed responsibly, but worldwide there's only around 100,000 people who are qualified to do that job. Even someone may have a title to oversee the risk of AI or technology development, but a lot of folks there are not qualified because of lack of understanding of the new risk associated with new emerging technology. So with all that, what's AI 2030, try to achieve is number one, that we try to really identify, industry-specific principles, where that's, for example, we talk about transportation, we talk about financial service, we talk about, manufacture, healthcare. All those, sectors are regulated, industry, where each industry, when you want to apply responsible AI, and those questions need to be asked very specific. And, if you see that those questions under a responsible AI framework, which is generalized, a lot of time those questions may not be relevant to a specific industry, to a specific customer segment. So we want to develop industry-specific framework and bring that bottom-up approach, engage the right stakeholders, and make sure that AI is being developed responsibly. The second piece is around education, public awareness, and also stakeholder engagement, meaning that if you want to make your AI responsible, the number one thing is that your AI development need to be inclusive. So where that's through those engagements, having the right folks through right channel, bring the concerns into the project design process, and especially in the framework design part. And once the agreement of the framework is there, and then naturally when the company apply those principles to develop, then they've already claimed that we followed the right principle, and naturally that's you should trust us or believe us. But many times, if the right people are not at a table, and then that framework, what they agreed upon, may not reflect your interest. So that is the second piece around the public engagement. The third is from the education piece, where that's from the current education, that's no matter university education, internal corporate training, or external professional development side. And many times you have business-driven type of training, or in the university setting, and then there's a lag where engineering-related education, which doesn't touch ethics, and you learn computer science, you may have one course on ethics, which is also not compulsory. And similar thing from the liberal arts and all that. So you don't learn coding. And where that's in the future, if we, in the future, which will be a collaborative intelligence between human and machine, and those education really are in lack of a fundamental piece, where that's humans need to really receive new type of knowledge in their education system, how that can be channeled. Or, for you who are already a professional in your job, and there are several challenges out there. Number one is from the automation side, that some jobs are at risk, and how you can upskill yourself. The second piece is that, you for certain job that without your knowledge in AI or responsible AI, you cannot do your job effectively. And just now, good example, our earlier speaker I talked, as a creator, if you don't know how to use those generative AI, you still just, spend time to working on your creatives. Others' productivity is like 1,000 times higher than you, but your price is the same. How can you even just sell one piece, right? Similar thing is, for regulators. If you are an examiner and then you are sent to a financial institution to say that whether their product comply, you don't know code, you don't know their large language model, and how can you just, you are assured with a job to do, examination and then to finally to say yes or no, this product will impact the customer in a negative or positive way. You are not confident that, for that judgment, because you are in lack of that knowledge. So a lot of new skill set, upskilling becoming natural essential. Then the third piece is that many of the new jobs need to emerge. And the good example, when algorithms need to be audited. So, but we don't have really, experts or a profession whose, title is, bias auditor. We don't have a profession and who is AI ethics officer. And all those new jobs will create new opportunities. And then that's just make a lot of us becoming, part of the new future of AI related, opportunities. So that is the second, the third piece.
Shashan.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to pause you.
Yes.
Let's get to some questions.
Okay, of course.
All right.
Yeah.
So, really quick, first question. And I was scrolling your slides behind you just because I wanted to make sure that they got through. But that said, so can you elaborate on some of the innovative applications of AI and immersive technology that you find particularly promising, and how these innovations could drive positive change, both in financial services and beyond?
Yeah, in the, basically from AI side, the benefits it has already been very clear, where that's, a lot of the most exciting innovation is really, those innovation just through automation and create product, enhance the productivity. And where we see tons of like AI empowered bot. And those bots generate content, generate answers, provide 27, and which the experience is much, much better than the phone call, where that's, answer machine is so, can only respond to very few questions, and you got so frustrated. Now with the AI, that's a lot of AI bots, which can give you so much, detailed answer, which you really just, say, do I really need a human to be there or not? Because a lot of time we are frustrated about the machines, not because, we want a human, it's because the machine gave really bad answer. But now a lot of AI related bots provide a really excellent answer, which was never before. And
okay. So given your extensive experience in building kind of transformative collaboration initiatives, how do you see partnerships between tech companies and non-tech organizations driving the advancements of these technologies?
Yeah, and responsible AI is a very good example, where that when you look at the responsible AI, you have fairness, transparency, privacy, sensibility, and all that. From a lot of those, governance, those are both technical and non-technical. A lot of technical companies really don't know how to set the right governance structure, how to bring the ethics into that, how to just engage the right stakeholder to bring the right opinion into the product. Those are the non-technical, which are essential. Then of course you only have those pieces where that your AI service, core service sucks. And then that will not work, where that you have all the great feedback, great governance structure that nobody wants to use your product if the tech piece doesn't work. So that's naturally to see, those two pieces definitely need to work together. Yeah.
All right, last question for you, which would be, is there, in your opinion, is there a good way for the people who are using these technologies to kind of, again, as an outsider who's trying to use the technology, not the person developing it, is there a way for them to responsibly determine which ones they should be using and which ones they shouldn't be using?
Yeah, those are, again, I don't know how many of you in the audience are startups or, innovators, the entrepreneurs. Those are the business opportunities, and those need will be genuine, where that's people, as you can see, from this, for example, again, go back to the future tools as as example, you have 2,000 tools out there, and do you know which tool trained with those with the data, which privacy was protected? Do you know which tool, which are trained with real authorization from the data owner? Do you know which tools use the data, which, those data owner benefits are compensated? Do you know? So a lot of those, and also, for the tools that's, do you know that's whether the tool, which are used to generate results, and then those results, then they can explain to you how that result is being generated, and then they can just give you all the details of why a decision is made that way or that. So there are a lot of questions that the users will have, and then the providers may not have, where that's you as an entrepreneur who can just fill that gap, where that's, to basically bring those principles up and also create, knowledge and rating and different type of tools, and then making users understand what they're using, what consequences may, apply, and also, how you can just, communicate that amongst each other, and also bring that to a broader, group or community. Those are, I think, definitely business opportunities. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to get to the audience Q&A at the end. We have one more presenter, and then all of the presenters will come back up to be able to answer questions from the audience, live, Verbella, and on the virtual space. I'll take the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have you come back in just a few minutes. All right, and I'm going to hand it over to Trisha to introduce our last presenter, who is David Weinstein.
Dave has been NVIDIA's Director of XR for the past 8 years. He currently lives in Salt Lake City, but was born and raised in Chicago. Dave is passionate about the intersection of XR and AI and firmly believes the future of XR is streaming. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Trisha. It's great to be here. Hold on, let me figure out how to turn on my camera. All right, if that worked, you can see me. Hello, everyone. Awesome. All right, and then let me get my slides are up. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Trisha. I'm happy to be here today. So as Trisha said, I'm Dave Weinstein. I'm the Senior Director of XR here at NVIDIA. Let's just jump to my first slide and get right into it. So, so hopefully most of you know who NVIDIA is at this point. NVIDIA, obviously we make the GPUs that many wonderful immersive and non-immersive graphics and AI experiences run on. Increasingly, NVIDIA also creates platforms, tools, SDKs to enable a whole developer community to build on top of. And so what I like to start off by explaining to people is that at NVIDIA, there's a bunch of different things that we're doing to help accelerate and enhance XR experiences. And so I use this slide, what we call the 4 pillars of XR at NVIDIA, to sort of talk about the different things that, excuse me, the different things that we're specifically working on. So looking at it, you know, taking it from the middle bottom of the slide, photorealism is super important to immersive experiences, which isn't to say that that cartoony VR doesn't have its use cases. It absolutely does. You know, you can be immersed, you can be having a great time, and you know, entertained with lower level, sort of simpler graphics. But if your role is you are a designer, or if you're a surgeon practicing a surgery, you know, there's really no replacement for having very, very realistic looking scenes for learning, for training. You know, if you're a decision maker trying to decide, you know, form of a new car or layout of a new building, you really need to be able to jump in a headset, see that car, walk through that building, and have everything be as real as possible. And so, you know, NVIDIA works very hard on technologies like ray tracing and global illumination, and even things like NeRFs that were talked about earlier, in order to have really accurate, faithful representations of reality. Moving to the right, you know, collaboration. What we're able to do here today is absolutely a superpower of immersive experiences. People don't work in silos anymore. It's all about teams and bringing all the appropriate stakeholders as part of the decision-making process. And so, you know, there's really, if you can bring everybody together in person, that's amazing. If you can't, you know, XR is a really great surrogate for that, and continues to get better and better. Moving up to the top, I don't need to convince this crowd of the importance of AI. You know, there's lots to be said about how AI and XR interplay, and I'm happy to talk more about that. One way that I'll show in a couple of slides is simply being able to use speech in order to interact with an XR experience. So if you're holding a tablet or if you're in an XR headset, it's very difficult to navigate through menus, to type on keyboards, to do the things that we're sort of used to from our standard GUI experiences. And so speech is a very natural way to interact with the scene. Being able to simply say things like, you know, let me see that model spun 180 degrees, let's change the lighting in the scene, and have the application respond to you through speech instead of through navigating with a keyboard and mouse. All of that, of course, is enabled through AI. And then over on the left, you know, that infographic is really just tying it all together, because in the end, in order to have the horsepower that you need computationally to do all of these things, you really need sort of large scale, a big GPU, a big computer, you know, but what people love is these more mobile form factors, and so there needs to be a way to stream both the compute and the AI and the graphics between sort of your large compute servers and your mobile XR devices. All right, next slide. All right, so this is what I was just saying. You know, these mobile devices are fantastic. The form factors continue to get better and better. Battery life is really good. You know, ultimately, they're a really good display, and many of them, more and more, have really good sensors built into them for eye tracking, for MR experiences where you want to do video pass-through. They're phenomenal as displays, but they're being driven by a really tiny little system-on-a-chip computer, essentially the same horsepower of compute as you have in your cell phone, which is very limiting in terms of what it can do natively on board. Next slide. And so at NVIDIA, we set out to build this thing that we call Cloud XR. And the idea was pretty straightforward. let's take those beautiful XR experiences, photorealistically rendered, running AI, doing all these sort of heavy compute things, have them run in a server, and then using streaming, make it possible to experience those games, those applications, those experiences on your lighter weight, more mobile devices. And so that really was a fairly straightforward insight. Making it work was really challenging. All sorts of challenges in terms of the network and latency and variable bandwidth, connections get dropped. And so being able to build this very robustly, very efficiently, that was the challenge of deploying Cloud XR. Next slide. So this slide actually has a video, which I'll have you start in a second, but let me set the stage first, or that's okay. Okay, so what you're seeing here is a podium at a conference. This is 2019, this is Mobile World Congress in LA. And my friend, Sean, is holding a cell phone and he's pointing it at a podium. And what he's seeing on the cell phone is this beautifully rendered car. This car is being rendered in a powerful enterprise application called Autodesk VRED. It's what everybody uses in the automotive styling industry. And it requires 2 A6000 GPUs, so 2 very high-end GPUs running on a big server. And so you can start the video now and I'll sort of narrate it. So Sean points his phone at this podium, just has a little graphic on it for orienting the scene. And then what pops into the scene is a fully rendered car model. So this is a 30 million polygon McLaren car. And what we're seeing here is the view on the phone as Sean moves it around. It updates instantaneously. And as we zoom in on different features of this car, you can really appreciate the complexity of the geometry, right? So you can see the stitching and the grain of the leather, super complex model, obviously nothing you could render locally on a cell phone. This experience was actually being streamed from Verizon's data center over their 5G network. All right, next slide. So this slide, this video, which will start, I'll cue you to start it in a second, is showing off a really great, relatively straightforward example of using speech to control an application. So once again, we're in Autodesk VRED, and my friend Sean is going to start talking to the application, and I will stop talking because there's audio along with this, so you can go ahead and play this video. It's about 1 minute. Are you hearing audio? Because I'm not hearing audio coming through here.
Matte and black interior and black matte rims and tinted glass and dark headlights and dark garage.
Change to a heroic camera.
Dramatic left front hero.
Turn the wheels the way they would have to go if you wanted to drive in a clockwise direction.
Turn wheels right.
Call this configuration the Batmobile.
Remembering Batmobile.
Change all of the Batmobile settings to something you think Barbie would prefer.
Barbie pink and pink trim and white red black interior, pink and rosy glass and pink headlights and shady stage.
Excellent. Okay. So the cool thing about that video was VRED doesn't have any natural language understanding built into it. But it does have what are called variant sets. And the idea of a variant set is it knows things like how to paint the car black, or how to make the interior black, or how to change, set the camera. And so what we did in that example is we essentially scraped the list of commands that, that VRED knows how to do. We scraped the list of variant sets that were associated with that car. And then through some magic on the back end, we tied in ChatGPT so that it could make sense of the utterances, the things that Sean was saying, using a speech-to-text model and then a large language model as well. And then using something called zero-shot learning, it would figure out, based on the things that it knew how to do with VRED, how to then respond to Sean's prompts. So pretty amazing, and just kind of scratching the surface of what you can do with AI. And of course, that, you know, this was a desktop example that we screenshot here, but it works immersively as well. All right, and with that, I will pause, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dave. Oh my goodness, that was amazing. I know you've been with NVIDIA for about 8 years, and the Barbie pink isn't my thing, but can we talk about how can I get a McLaren in my parking garage? Because
yeah, I can help you with that. Just feel free to send me a note.
all right. So are intersect, and how do they benefit businesses?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, you know, my background is computer science, so I think of things in terms of stacks, in terms of layers, and it turns out that AI can benefit XR pretty much at every layer of the stack. So what I mean by that is, for those of you who are computer graphics people, I'll get a little bit technical just for a second. When you're trying to render for a VR headset, you're rendering typically at 90 frames per second in stereo at high resolution. And just from a graphics point of view, that's really challenging. That's a lot of pixels per second. It's way more than you would typically have for a desktop design application, for example. And so part of the way that we can hit that frame rate, hit that number of raw pixels, is using something called DLSS, which is really just upresing. So NVIDIA has developed a technology where you essentially render a lower res image and it's able to upscale. And the same thing can work in time, where you can render, say, every other frame, and then you can use AI in order to fill in between frames. And so all of these AI tools, or I should say, you know, that layer of rendering in the AI in the graphics stack can be accelerated with DLSS. Inside of a headset, you know, as soon as we're trying to do things like mixed reality, it's all about understanding the world around us, recognizing objects, identifying people. And that, you know, again, is sort of an AI problem. We have things like gesture recognition, where, you know, users want to be able to point and have the system respond, be able to track things like hands. And so really the answer is all the way through that stack, including speech understanding, including speech generation, things like, we haven't even touched on really Gen AI, but in that car example that I just showed, you know, being able to say things like, oh, let's put this car in a sunny beach setting, and using Gen AI to create those backgrounds, as Eva was talking about at the beginning, super powerful, right? We all want to be world builders, and wouldn't it be fun to jump into a headset and just be able to speak to the application to create those worlds?
I love that. Thank you. World built. Listen, I'm still stuck on the McLaren. So I'll create the world, a big mansion somewhere with my McLaren
drive
parked.
it around. I mean, that is, so sorry, just to add one more thing, or finish answering your question. I think virtual assistants are going to be one of those other superpowers for immersion. So we've all had the experience of working with someone who's just a phenomenal assistant to us, right? It's almost like they read your mind. So if you're a film director and you're on set, the assistant to the director, the director starts to say like, oh, let's move that. And the assistant already knows what they're going to say, right? They're helping. We all want that virtual assistant in our XR experiences for information, like just being able to ask it questions, for remembering what we have done previously in the application, and just being really another set of hands. So like the example that I just showed with changing the styling of the car, so I think that virtual assistance is going to be one of these huge wins for AI plus XR.
Hell yeah, I imagine. I need a virtual assistant, like stat.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
For those considering, so let's just take a step back. So for those considering integrating XR and AI into their business, like just starting out, what advice would you offer them as a starting point?
Yeah, great question. There's a ton of tools and documentation. Again, Evo referred to futuretools.io, right? I haven't checked it out yet, but I will. There's so many great tools out there, and they've been integrated into a number of the tools that you use every day, right? Adobe Suite now has AI tools integrated into it. And NVIDIA makes a number of platforms. There's a phenomenal set of tools called Picasso, which is all about generative AI, right? Being able to send in text prompts and say, give me this type of an image, give me that type of a video, give me a 3D model. So it's basically speech to anything, any sort of media content. So yeah, I would start with exploring a lot of the great tools that are out there. Learning about prompt engineering, super smart. That makes a ton of sense. And then start playing with the tools, right? You can't really learn it until you get your hands dirty. And fortunately, all of these tools have wonderful interfaces where you can start trying them, playing with them, and just jump in.
Be curious. I love that. Let's start from there, right? I can personally say that, I'm insatiably curious about all things XR and AI. So I'm sure, I hope the audience is taking notes. I think we might have time for one more question from me before we open it up to everyone. Can you give us a glimpse into the future? Like, you've given us some glimpses right now, right? But just in terms of how it can continue to reshape different industries, like in terms of the future of XR and AI, like we talk virtual assistants, is there anything else?
Yeah, I think we're just starting to see a new generation of XR devices that do a phenomenal job with mixed reality, right? And I'm super excited about what that's going to mean for that intersection of XR and AI. We have these ingredients. We have, the project that I just showed you, which is kind of a virtual assistant that we can tie into content creation applications. Now we have mixed reality headsets that do a really good job with pass-through video and hand recognition. And so tying together all of these pieces, I think, is going to enable the creation of really phenomenal new tools. And we'll kind of look back at today, at this era, as kind of this big boom where those ingredients were put together and people started to create these fantastic experiences and tools for everyone to use.
Thank you. We just have to continue pushing the boundaries. Thank you so much for sharing. I'd like to thank the other speakers for sharing as well. Lots of knowledge, lots of insights dropped here. I think we can now move on to question and answers.
Yeah, okay, so real quick how this is going to work, because we do have 3 live audiences and we can get questions and answers from all 3 of them. I'm actually going to ask Patrick to come on up and grab a microphone because I don't want to make Ben walk around too much. So there's a microphone by Tom. So in the physical space here, the way that this works, the way that Q&A works is basically raising hands. So if you raise your hand, I will try to call on people in the order that I see hands go up. In the virtual space, if I cannot see you, I'm actually watching the list of people in the virtual space as well, and I will call on people by raised hand in the order that things went up. Do have audience on watching the live stream who can actually ask Tom questions through the comments. So if I see Tom's hand go up, that means it's coming from YouTube. But I do know that I saw a couple questions up in the front center here several times, so I'm going to let you guys go first. Patrick will hand you the microphone. The way that this works, so in the virtual space, while we're doing this, just so you know, in the virtual space, when I call on you, feel free to please open your microphone at that point. We'll try to ask your question and then close your microphone again. If you end up having trouble with audio in the virtual space, you can type your question into chat and I'll let Trisha read it out. But we have a couple live questions in the live space right now. And Zhao, you're going to come back up on stage here? Because feel free to bring the drink with you. That's great. I've got one too. But you can ask a question to any one of the panel members, all the panel members. It's entirely up to you. But we'll go with our first question right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is a question for Zhao. So I'm glad you came up. Boy, it was hard to take a big bite of that concept sandwich that you were presenting. That's like a lot of information. But I guess my question or curiosity about this is in the realm of what you talked about, ethics. And with ethics, there are rights and wrongs and boundaries and kind of things that enter into the legal realm. And when you talk about AI and you talk about the future, you're talking about, 2030 as being sort of your desired date in the name of your company, is how do you go to change policy to get the powers that be, governmentally and governance, kind of understand what those ethics and boundaries are legally? And just a little something about that would be interesting.
Sure. And so governments all over the world actually are all over it. And just yesterday, that's White House issued the executive order and on responsible, AI, and with 3 keywords: trustworthy, safety, and I forgot the other one. But in general, that's basically the administration requested all the agency to just look into their own specific, area that they're focusing on, and to make sure that AI development, AI research, AI application really, are being done in a responsible way. And then that's open basically door for the different government agency to build their capacity and also to just start rolling out the stuff. And then at the state level, there are a lot of lawmaking process already going on. And then especially in California and all that, there are already several new rules and laws which are being, introduced. Worldwide, like EU just have the EU AI Act, and Latin America, Asia, and all government agencies are trying to working on that. But my point is that it's beyond the law. Law is the lowest level of requirements for you, and then the ethics is a lot of is like you want the country to becoming good, and the law is that basically say like the minimum you can do, make you comply. But ethics ask you, you should be doing better than the law asks you, and then that is really bring the real benefit. So, because in the AI space, there's a lot of group working on beneficial AI, and then you need to, when you develop the AI, then you have to prove that AI is benefiting the human beings, and there are a lot of lawmaking. There's a lot of bottom-up approach as well.
I'm gonna go with, I see Evo in the space adding text comments, so I'm gonna let her, if she wants to open up the mic and comment on this as well.
Just noting that the US's executive order that was released this week was about 100 pages, which is an extreme
long executive order. So I put the link in. There's a lot of language that will be firmed up in the next 45 to 90 days here in the US, and the EU is about to release a very similar document.
All right, I got a question here also. Hang on a second. Got a question here and a question there. I see you guys, but I do have two questions that popped up in Verbella, so I'm gonna go with Nam first. Nam Tran. Your mic's open, but we can't hear you. Okay, I see Nam is now typing their question. So while Nam is typing this question, which I will read next, I'll go to this one in the front row here.
I have a simple statement of trying to clarify, because you gave a lot of information. So basically, what the fear is that we will become so reliant on AI. Like, I use ChatGPT and I also use Claude, and I love it very much, because it does things in marketing that would have taken me weeks, and it can literally do depending on how I pose the question. So my thing to you is that the fear, not only of the unknown, but we will become so reliant that we will trust them over ourselves, right? That's what you're saying. We need people to come as a group to give ideas, but if we're constantly relying just on AI and we don't trust ourselves any longer, that be false, I guess, because of
You have a question? Sorry.
It's not a question.
Okay.
It's I'm trying to clarify what you were trying to say. Is that it?
Yeah, just quickly, I think that's a concern where but it's not the whole story. Meaning that if AI are guaranteed to do good, why not we rely on AI, right? But the point is that we don't know. And a lot of AI is not explainable. And a lot of AI is not designed with ethics. A lot of AI just already generates, bias, unfair result and all that. So if we rely on AI and then AI results may have, negative consequence, and those consequences are really impactful, like life and death and all that, of course we shouldn't. Yeah.
All right, I got another question in Verbella. Stephen Kirk. Trisha, do you want to check with Stephen Kirk?
Yeah, I'm here.
Stephen, are you? Yep, Stephen's on.
Yep, thanks. I have a question probably for David, but I'm happy if anybody wants to chime in with other thoughts and ideas. I'm curious, you were talking about the apps that are good to start digging into AI, generative AI, in terms of world design and everything else that goes on. But on the flip side, is there anything you would say is perhaps not worth learning at this point, knowing how fast we're moving through some of these technologies and what the typical learning time is like to come up to speed on something? It may be useless by the time you get around to learning it.
Wow, that's a tough one. I always think it's good so it builds in layers, right? And I mean, Evo can probably speak to this even better than I can, but some of the early experiments in prompt generation were, somewhat challenging. And if you had learned everything there was to learn at that point about how to generate a good prompt, that's, that world will change over the next 6 months as AIs make it easier and easier to sort of speak to them. And, but if you understand prompt engineering, then you will understand what the system is trying to help you do in the background. And that, that will enable you to generate good prompts no matter how much the AIs are helping. And so I think, if you can learn the fundamentals, that's always valuable. Learning the very specific nuance of small features in ChatGPT 3 or 3.5, those will come and go. But understanding how transformers work, understanding how prompts work, like those are fundamentals that will always be useful.
I see. Yeah. So definitely, theory-based learning is, anytime you can do that, it's a good direction to go in.
Yes, and there's grammar to it, but there are entire classes of tools that, for example, only work in Discord. And for some people, they don't enjoy the Discord experience. And if that's the case, if it's a UX challenge, there's often another tool that does the exact same thing with a different user experience. So don't get caught up on bad UX. If a tool has a bad UX, go find a different tool that does the same.
Sorry, I have us muted and so they can't hear you.
Yeah, the learning have different purpose. Some learning make you smart, other learning make you effective. And so, it's never too late to learn things that make you smart. And but for those, if you want to learn, make yourself more effective for your job. And then there's a time stamp there. That's if you learn something which already outdated, for sure, that's waste of your time. Yeah.
All right, Patrick.
I had a question maybe for David and anyone else. Yeah, I could jump in. When you were speaking about the McLaren, you mentioned how it obviously couldn't be rendered on a cell phone due to the current capabilities. I wonder, where does everyone kind of think we are in terms of the ubiquitousness? I don't think that's a word, but how it feels like, even though the McLaren looked really cool, it's not something that I can use practically tomorrow. So I guess the question is how far do we think that those applications become as popular as a cell phone, or becomes ubiquitous throughout society? That was it.
Yeah, I think the way. So I think there's a couple of questions in there, so I'll try to unpack maybe the first one. So yeah, most of us are not users of Autodesk VRED or some of the other enterprise tools. But the larger point was we all want to, or I want to, move around in virtual environments that look amazing, that are that look like a CG Hollywood movie. And to do that today, I would say there's a couple of challenges. Number one is the content generation, but I think we're all really optimistic that Gen AI is going to help a lot with sort of world building, as I was saying. And then the second one is, okay, but how are we going to render it fast enough, and where are we going to simulate those physics? And for those sorts of problems, you need a decent sized computer with honestly a decent sized GPU. And so what we're seeing at the same time that Gen AI and a bunch of these other technologies are coming online is a huge push from the telecommunication companies to push out things like 5G, which give us high bandwidth, low latency connectivity. And then of course companies like AWS and Google and Microsoft are all rushing to push compute at the edge, right? So if I have these wonderful mobile devices with beautiful screens and sensors on them, I can be doing this other work, sort of as a co-processor, if you will, that's at the edge, and then just rely on 5G and streaming to kind of tie those together. So anyways, I'll stop there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so 2 points there. That's one is those technology adoption. We probably, a lot of you are aware of the bell curve, right? And then there's a natural adoption cycle. There's early adopter, late adopter. There's a behavior there. That's who you are, and then define when do you adopt a new technology. That's something which is proactively that you can seek that. The second piece is that a lot of technology really depend on, or rely on the accessibility, meaning that's how expensive it is, and are you economically, are you good enough to just becoming early adopter or not? And then when the technology becoming so cheap, and then that becoming everyone. The third component is about user experience. And for example, I have glasses, and currently that's, when I use any of the device, and I cannot really stay there for like more than 5 minutes because it's so uncomfortable. And that experience just limit me, how much time, although I used a lot, but it's only because I'm advising my startups. And they asked me, you have to experience us so that you can give us feedback. But I use that, it's like I force myself. Like if I can choose, I will not use it because of the user experience. When the user experience enhanced dramatically, naturally, you put, customer in the center, you solve their, problem, you will also be able to, make your technology more accessible and more inclusive, yeah.
I'm actually going to push in on this a little bit more, just because part of the question I didn't hear the answer to, which is the when question. So what I'm going to throw out here, and I just noticing some of the people in the room who I've worked with and had experiences with, 6 years ago, if you wanted to create a simple augmented reality experience, you had to hire someone like me or some other folks that I see in the room here to do it. You still can hire us. Yes, absolutely. You can still hire us. But that said, nowadays, there's 4 to 5 that I can think of, drag and drop, create it yourself, augmented reality on the web, instantly, immediate, free tools. And that was, you're talking about a period of 6 years ago. Now, obviously, they still can't create stuff as good as a professional developer can, but it gets you a lot further. The question he asked was, how long do you think it's going to take till like the McLaren, that type of functionality? Now, I realize, we as consumers or as an individual, I'm not necessarily going to have that much of a model of a McLaren, but maybe I've got that much of my product. And for me to be able to to create a model and use the type of processing power that was being used to deliver that, and this speaks specifically, David, to you and NVIDIA and the Cloud XR tools, at what point do you see those types of Cloud XR tools being available to, say, a small business? Like, is that today? Is that a year from now?
That's today if you know the right people. So there are companies like InnoActive who are, will take your VR application, stand it up in the cloud, set up all of the provisioning and orchestration so that your users, your customers can just put on a headset and use it, and it just works for them. But most people don't have a company like InnoActive in their back pocket or know them. And so, my goal is, in the same way that GeForce Now made it super easy to stream your favorite gaming titles, and really easy to get the client application, and you just fire it up and you're using a high performance GPU somewhere in the cloud. My goal is to get enterprise applications to that same point.
Okay, got a question in the back of the room here.
Yep. I think the intersection of compliance and AI is going to be an interesting place. So my question is, I think with machine learning, if I go to a doctor's office, it'll be able to predict what will happen to me in the next 5 years. With deep learning, it'll be able to predict what will happen to me in the next 25 years. But what if I do not want AI to access my patient health records? Do you kind of see that conflict come pretty soon, where you have existing compliances and then you have AI which almost supersedes the existing compliances?
I'm actually going to ask Evo to answer this one first, just because kind of what you talked about with the personal information.
Okay. Specifically, what part of it did you want me to speak to?
Just the ability for you, like, you had mentioned how, like, what you're doing now with using personal, if you're prompting, you're not putting someone else's name into it. What do you think should be, and I'm specifically asking you because you're not, because I know where the other two's technology expertise is. I want to get your answer. if AI is going to be this ubiquitous tool, but if I'm, as he's mentioned, if he's going to a doctor's office and saying, listen, I don't want my health record going into the AI for you to use this, where do you think those lines should be drawn? How should that work? What are your thoughts?
There are certain controls that are certainly still in the end user's hands. So like my doctor, for example, when using a new AI tool in the waiting room with me the other day, asked my permission first. So in some cases, there is still this consent-driven model. I personally do not trust most generative tools to treat our personal information responsibly. And that includes most of the major companies we deal with, right? Meta, Google. What they are saying today about our data may not be the same as what they are going to say down the road about our data, right? So that's a consideration every time you prompt. When I gave a workshop a week ago for a corporate group, they could not use anything that they do at work in their prompt craft. It was against the rules of their work. Right, and different groups have different rules. So in medicine, it's frequently just not allowed to use these tools in the workplace itself, or they can only use tools like Adobe's Creative Suite, where they know it is sort of approved for work, right? And so with a lot of the companies I talk to, they only have a small number of generative tools that they have approved to be sort of within the firewall of the company. And every group has a different approach on this. In education, it's a completely different approach too, because educational libraries, they're often looking for an open source solution that isn't going to return not safe for work options, right? So there's a relatively small number of tools like that. Each of these tools are starting to find their niches, but for most of them, you definitely need to read the terms of service. And one thing that the crew at Mozilla has been doing, a colleague of mine, Bobby Rakova, has been rewriting TOS to be called the terms we serve with. And I think this is a really powerful way to rethink how we create terms with our technology companies together in real time, and in some cases push back if what they are doing with our data or with our information is not appropriate.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on something kind of along the themes that Eva was just talking about, because we saw this with open source when there was the open source revolution. A lot of companies would look at the license, like say GPL, and say, like, as an enterprise, we don't use anything GPL because we don't want the exposure. Do we see something similar happening with AI, where companies are saying we can't use AI because it might, violate copyright or get us into some kind of legal jeopardy or other jeopardy because we've relied on AI to generate something that our company is profiting off of? Do we see any of that happening, or how are companies making those decisions?
And not just in industry, but if you look in media and entertainment, obviously this was a big part of the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild's strikes, because how that information is going to be used is going to keep changing, and we don't necessarily feel like it's appropriate to use all different types of manners of tools in every specific way. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you look at what the Writers Guild, for example, was asking for, it was to make sure that they weren't dropping jobs in the writer's room, just replacing people with AI, right? There's pushback in almost every industry, and whether that's is this tool appropriate, or should we just not be using these tools at all? It varies from industry to industry.
Yeah, this question is fundamental because you're asking what rights do we have? And this, basically lawmakers now are in the process to just looking at really two bigger categories. One category is that, many rights already being defined in the existing laws. And where that in the healthcare, there's a specific, like is privacy, is different rules already, the red tape, which protect many of the rules. And one of the reviewing process for regulators is that looking at how AI is impacting those existing rules, existing rights, which are already given to the or in the legal documents, those are the rights already being protected. So another piece is that there are AI specific related rights which are not being included in any of the existing laws, rules, where that need to be defined. Those are the new rights which humans, individuals have, which laws don't exist to protect them. And then those are the new lawmaking process that happens in the healthcare, financial service, and many sectors. There's basically, really this two process. What you're asking for is really, do firstly that rights of, me don't accept AI related, healthcare service. Is that a right which will be protected by the lawmaker or not? That is basically negotiate social contract which need to be established, which is not now. Yeah.
I'm just waiting to see if David wants to jump in on this at all, or if he thinks it's covered.
I think it was well covered.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna see if we have any more questions. Otherwise, we are gonna jump to final statements. I don't see any here, nothing from the live stream. No questions from the live stream. That's interesting. What's that?
There was a question in the chat, but Yunji has left, and it was a general question for all of the panelists, aspirational one. If I
Can you read that out?
Yeah. If you had one aspiration for the future of AI, what would that be? Anyone on the panel can.
Who wants to go first?
I will say, I think we are eventually moving toward a far more intuitive relationship with all of our computing systems. And so while this generation of generative tools is not necessarily intuitive enough to understand exactly what we're looking for, I suspect future generations of generative tools.
Dave? Thank you,
Sure.
Ivo.
Yeah, good answer. My hope for AI is that it doesn't expand the digital divide, but hopefully shrinks the digital divide. And what I mean by that is, my kids came home from school a year ago or whenever it was, and knew about ChatGPT even before I did, right? And I live in that world. And so there are tools like ChatGPT that are coming online that are super valuable, that all students should be learning about. But I can guarantee you that if we went around and sampled, grade schools around the country, you're going to see a divide already, where there are schools who are figuring out how to embrace it, how to teach their students how to use AI technology, and there are other schools who, for a variety of reasons, aren't. And so, my hope is that we figure out a way to make AI tools like that accessible, that we work to teach everyone how to use them, so that they help to shrink the digital divide, not grow it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Before Zhao answers, I just want to let you know, just because you brought it up, my daughter in high school had an assignment that she was telling me about how they actually were told to use an image generator as part of their lit class to create the image around the story that they were reading.
I love that.
It's kind of scary. If you wanted to answer, go ahead.
Yes, and just I left the room and came back. A gentleman just left the room and told me that I love your talk, but we are doomed. So my projection for the future is we're not doomed. That's it.
All right, we have one last question in the room here.
Yes, my question is for David. It's regarding autonomous driving. I was wondering if you feel you're working as a competitor to or in conjunction with a company like Tesla? And who are the major players in autonomous driving? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't sit. My team is specifically focused on XR at NVIDIA. And so I read the same things you do about autonomous driving, but I can't really speak for NVIDIA on that front. Sorry.
It's okay. All right. So with that, so what we're going to do is we're going to move to final statements. Here's how this works. Oh, you don't get to get away from that yet. So the way the final statements works, I'm going to call on each presenter one at a time, every panelist. This is your time to start thinking, by the way, about what your final statement is going to be. You're going to have about 20 to 30 seconds to just give a closing statement. Anything you want to say about the technology, about what you do, about the program here. Your call, it's your 30 seconds to pretty much talk about whatever you want to talk about. I will call on you. It's your time. So like I said, you got a few more seconds while I explain this to think about what you want to say. After that, I will call on Trisha. She will give her final statement. I'll give my final statement. Then we'll go to some housekeeping. And then there's just a couple final slides at the end of the event. And of course, we're still open here. We still have the room. So networking, a lot of this event, which we've said for a lot of time, is sometimes sitting in these conversations is great. Sometimes you really just need to meet somebody or talk to somebody about this stuff. We are here for that purpose. Every one of our presenters, their contact information is available on the website, so you can reach out to them after this if you want to ask a one-on-one question that you weren't comfortable speaking on a microphone, whatever. But that said, I have stalled long enough. Hopefully our presenters are ready to go, and I'm going to go in reverse order and start with David.
Awesome. 30 seconds. Okay, so I'll echo something that I touched on earlier, which is these technologies are all new and they're all participatory. So get in there and play with them. Play with the latest XR devices. Find a friend who purchased the Quest 3. It's really fun. Play with the Gen AI tools that are available online. Like the best thing that you could do, that we could do as a group, is push these tools, test these tools, see what they're good at. Don't just rely on the headlines and secondhand experiences. Get in and participate.
All right, Joe, you're next.
I like the next evolution, and I think the conversation is really interesting. And from the question, I learned a lot. And I also learned a lot from Ivo and also from Dave, and really thank you.
Sweet, thank you very much. Okay, Ivo.
You never have a sense of what you can do until you try it. So I'm a woman in her late 40s who started a rock band with a whole bunch of other rock stars from around the world. And it would not have happened without these tools. So try things, explore, experiment, and see what happens. And who knows, maybe you'll be building the worlds we come and see next year.
Okay, Trisha.
2 words, be curious. I think the possibilities are definitely endless. We talked about pushing the boundaries, and I'm just thrilled to, this is my first time hosting here, thrilled to have been able to have this glimpse into the future with you all. Just, my immense gratitude for your time and attention. Thank you for the opportunity. I really look forward to many more discussions on, this ever evolving field. Stay curious, stay informed, embrace play. See you next time.
All right. And so, the final thing, normally I don't actually jump in and say too much on a final statement, but there's 2 things that I've heard recurring quite a bit here. And I'll just let everybody know in the room as I see Patrick setting up his Quest 3 for those who want to try it. But that said, there's 2 topics that have come up quite a bit. Number one, and I'll echo this, yes, get your hands dirty, try this stuff, play with it. There are hundreds of generative tools out there that, many of them free, that you can literally just go to a website and try them out. Ivo, can you actually, what was that website again?
Futuretools.io to go and search which tools might be right for you.
Thank you. Futuretools.io, which is one that I'm going to have a lot. I'm going to keep repeating that and probably post it a little bit so that people know to look at that. I've played with myself personally about 25 different generative tools at this point, a lot of them text, some of them images, a couple of them video, tried a couple of the 3D ones, did a few music ones. I'm not a good musician, so I'm glad we have Evo on the panel today because none of the music stuff I tried went well. But even video generators, there's a lot of these tools. They're very fun to play with. Try it. The other big topic, which I'm hearing, which I'm going to quote one of the attorneys who actually spoke at our law program about like legal aspects of XR technology, which is that the law is going to take a while to catch up with the tech. The tech moves really, really fast and the law moves really, really slow. And so, you know, for a lot of those of us who are working in the space, we have to be conscious of that and try to make the ethical decisions before the law requires it, because the law is going to be years behind the technology. So that's my final thought. With that said, I do want to once again thank our presenters, thank our audience members who brought up the great questions. I definitely want to thank the volunteers who work this event and basically make this happen, anybody who's donated to support it, because we wouldn't be able to do it without you. With that said, I will once again humbly ask for donations to support us running this event, because while it is free to attend, it is not free to produce. And with that said, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we have upcoming over the next few months. In December, we're going to be doing an event on social spaces. There will be a stage and a virtual presentation portion of that event. Oh, you're going to walk away? I was going to have him give you applause. That's fine. That's fine. You're still in the room. But we're going to do an event on social spaces. So it will be a shorter stage presentation than normal. We're going to actually focus on interacting within some of the immersive and live social spaces. But the focus of that topic will be social spaces. There will be a stage presentation, a virtual presentation. That's for the December event, which will, as normal, take place on the first Wednesday in December. In January, there will not be a virtual component. We're just going to be doing a social gathering, getting together, having fun, no stage, no presentation. Literally, let's just network and have some drinks and some food and have a good time. We might have some demonstrations there because we tend to almost always have VR demonstrations with us. But our next full sort of normal stage presentation will be in February, and the topic will be architecture and construction. We're going to be focusing next year a lot on the kind of the Illinois career path, the career pathways. And while we always pick a new industry every month to focus on, we're going to be focusing a lot. Our industries are going to align a lot with the career pathways next year. But with that said, I promised I would get the NFT up again, so it is up. Thanks again to everybody who's been involved. At this point, the actual official portion of the presentations and the stage stuff is over, and we hope to see you again next month. Please follow our socials. That's how you'll find all the details about the events that are coming up, because the January date is not set yet. So yeah, please follow our socials, check in with us, sign up for the newsletter, and we hope we'll see you again soon. I'm going to turn the mic off, and we're going to move into some more demonstrations and drinks and conversation. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Bye.
And just so you know, and for Bella in the virtual space, I'm going to mute you guys in the room here, so you're good to talk freely amongst yourselves and network there.
All right. Thank you.
Great night, y'all.
Now we can get rowdy.
Yay! Where's the dance? Hold on.
Me,
I don't remember how to dance.
Right?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Nam. How are you? Can you hear?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get my microphone up until just now.
Ah, but you could
Is
hear.
David still there?
Stephen?
Yes.
Still here. Still here.
Dancing.